We are here at the 4IR interviews with Andrew Leask. Andrew is one of the main leaders in JLR for business transformation. He's been in business for over 20 years, starting, building, growing and transforming businesses. Andrew, such a pleasure to meet you. Thanks ever so much for your time. I could not possibly introduce you better than yourself, so please tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay. I guess we were saying I've worked across a whole range of industries.
Yeah.
So engineer by training, so aeronautical engineer, first degree. I've worked in aerospace, in automotive, obviously,
Yep.
in light rail. Spent 10 years in Australia doing a whole set of digital work and consulting. Done a lot of lean consulting. A lot of transformation projects. A lot of startup mentoring. Big passion of mine. Helping startup firms, and then back to JLR, having originally worked at Rover last century, back to JLR and here for the last 6 years, doing a whole range of really interesting transformation work.
Great, thank you. So the fourth industrial revolution, I'm a big believer that it is a revolution. There's so much disruption, there's a lot of technologies out there, there's people disappearing, there's people joining. What do you feel the fourth industrial revolution is all about, and what are some of the fundamentals to adapt to it?
Yeah, it's a really interesting challenge. I think for me, particularly with a lot of the work I'm doing at the moment, it's really, a lot of it feels like we're still last century in some ways. We're pulling together a lot of unpleasant data and doing good things with it. For me, the fourth industrial revolution is really as we move beyond finding that data and aligning that data, and then actually using that to direct real life. And I know that for a lot of people it's about you hook your robots up right and things like this. The area I'm working in is very people focused. So we don't have a chip yet in every engineer.
Yes.
But the interesting thing then is when you say, well, how does the fourth industrial revolution impact on people in this way? And as we bring together all of this data on what people are doing and how they should be working, what they should be doing next, the fun thing is, of course, everybody is plugged in all the time. We haven't wired them in directly, but everybody has an iPhone within JLR, and so effectively we can guide them by remote control using things like that. And it's not robotic. You don't program them, they do stuff, but actually being able to give people information enough to say, actually right now, what are my priorities coming out of here? What are the things that I can do now which will really make a difference? And actually cutting through all the other noise that arises on that iPhone. That's really important for us. And that, I think, is where I see the fourth industrial revolution for us at the moment is the ability to give people the full weight of all the data of the business behind them in a way that is really relevant to them at any given moment. Not the whole wave of it, but just that particular piece.
So do you think fourth industrial revolution, and with your experience over the years in different industries, is actually something new? Is it changing the way the industry, specifically manufacturing across different sectors, has worked up till now?
It's a good question. I think done right, yes. Yes, it's new. 15 years ago, I was running a rapid prototyping bureau. So rapid prototyping and advanced manufacturing. And the interesting thing on that, as I was doing the transformation for that ready for sale, was looking at it and saying, I think at that point Amazon had just started saying to people, we can track your package, you can tell where stuff is. And so we were looking at it and saying, well, what would be great would be if we could get to the point of saying, we've received your order. Okay, your order is now on a machine, and that machine is building it. Your order is now being finished by someone. Your order has now gone into this box and is now off. And so if we were looking at doing that 15 years ago, you'd have to say, well, that's a long way through. Particularly as a lot of the change between then and now is really just the ability to really properly interconnect that. So when we were looking at doing it, it would be lots of manual scanning and things. The ability to have that just happen automatically as part of the process is where the real industrial revolution on this has become for me. And it's the stuff that you can then do, you don't even realise that you can do at the start. So as we're finding on my current project, as you bring data together, and as you make that data more current in front of people, people start to join dots that they couldn't even see before. And for customers in a rapid prototyping bureau, the ability to know it will be here on this day and have absolute confidence in that means that you can probably go from saying, well, yeah, I'm not sure when I'm going to get it, I'll leave a week, to actually I've got confidence to, every time that I'm going to get this, I can expect to get it in 2 days. So that suddenly you've just gained 3, 4, 5 days of your development process, and that time is money. So I think it is absolutely a revolution coming, and particularly if you get deep into batch manufacturing and things like that, the companies that really grab it and do it well, they're just going to have such an advantage over those that don't. It's really interesting.
Great.
Do you see this being something that SMEs can pick up on?
Absolutely should as well, because if so the work I did a lot of work with SMEs in Australia, and the big challenge there is you really are squeezed from both ends. You've got startups coming in and saying, well, we're doing all this brand new shiny stuff and taking all the news from you. You've got big manufacturers who start to take stuff. As soon as you get it to a decent volume, that volume will go to a large manufacturer. So as an SME, you are in this really painful position where you have to be better and more nimble. But you're not as nimble as the startups, and you're not as cheap as the big manufacturers. So actually managing to really leverage every part of your business to the utmost is the only way you're going to really survive as things go, as far as I think.
Some of the fundamentals you touched on there, if you were to have a step-by-step process, that obviously keeps it at a fairly general level, but what would be one of the kind of first 2 or 3 steps you would take transforming any type of business?
First thing is, and it's one I always have to remind myself, is don't come in and expect it to be the same problem as the last problem you just fixed. That's always an issue. You come in fresh off another project and go, well, actually, this is what we're doing, this is how we do things, this is what we're fixing. Whereas really what you need to do is, the first step in all of these things is what is the actual problem you're trying to solve. And part of that might be, we have a clear and present issue within the business. We are going out of business because of X, Y, or Z, and it's written in everybody's faces and everybody knows it. But in other cases, it can be harder. So from an SME perspective, it's, well, in 5 years, where do we need to be? We're doing okay at the moment, and the customers are still here, and maybe they're dropping off, and maybe they're not. We can't really see. But in 5 years, where do we need to be? Where does our technology need to be? So investments we're making now, how long do those last? And if they're lasting 10 years, well, what's the business going to be like in 10 years? So part of your problem is actually, in a lot of these cases, looking at what the potential for the business is. And does everybody understand that? And is everybody working towards that? Because if they're not, well, you are wasting money in every possible direction. And so,
how easy is it to get a business to start thinking 10 years forward in light of threats today and opportunities in the market? How easy is that?
It's easy and hard, and there's 2 sides to that answer. So it's easy to get people to dream. It's hard to get people to turn it into a plan.
Yeah.
So I was having a conversation the other day with people about flying cars, and you think, well, maybe it's going to happen.
Yep.
Maybe everyone will have one. Maybe that's the autonomous future. But if that is the only future your business is seeing, then there's a whole heap of things you're missing. And actually, even if that is the future you're seeing, what's your plan to get there? What's your plan to support that? What's your plan to to be part of that ecosystem? Or do you have to? In some cases, do you have to turn to the business and say, well, actually, the world is changing, and it's not going to be your world anymore. And it's time to just wind it down. But it's actually being able to look at the future, have some dreams, but then go, and if that's the vision in 10 years, in 5 years we've got to have done this. Okay, if we're doing that in 5 years, then it's sort of agile strategic planning. In in 3 years we need to have done this, in 2 years we need to have done this, in a year we need to have done this, and we're going to break that up and say, within the next 3 months we need to have done this. That's our strategic sprint.
Yeah.
To get to those 1, 2, 3, 5, 10 year goals.
I think one of the things I find really interesting with this process is a lot of people have a lot of ideas, and a lot of changes they want to bring, and this is across SMEs, across big organizations. But they lack that platform.
Yes.
To how do they actually take that idea through that process, and especially when it's not something that you're going to sell, it's an internal improvement that's going to create efficiency.
Yeah.
It becomes even harder when you need investment for that.
Yeah.
So as a first stage, is there any in terms of identifying what's the current problem and any maybe a business model canvas or a format that you would suggest?
Yeah, I think business model canvas is quite a good one. I've used both that and the lean model canvas, both with startups and also with our teams at JLR, to actually try and get them to think about how we within transformation pitch ideas to the rest of the business. The key thing I've found is you have to all be speaking the same language, and that's the real difficulty, particularly as for business transformation we come in from a central department to particular functions and say, well, we've got this problem, we can fix it. And we'll come in with a strategic hat on, with a vision for the next 5 years of where JLR needs to be going, and with a very different background to the conversation, to the people who are day in, day out working in a particular process. And so for me, the very first thing in all of this, when you have your great idea, and you think it's solving a problem, you have to really get out and go, is this a problem from the customer perspective? And the business model canvas is really good for helping you think that way. Who is the actual customer on this? What is the problem they're having? And through doing that scoping and that research, you should be, this is classic consultant bit, you should be able to turn around to them and resell them the stuff they told you. Because your idea that you had at the start, you've probably modified as you've gone through the conversations with them. But also, as you've had those conversations, you will have learnt the way that they talk, the way that they think about the problems, the metrics that they have as issues. So one of the key things on the programme I'm working on at the moment is we cross so many areas of the business. You can't have one set of conversations. And so to try and do the overall strategic piece was initially quite hard, because purchasing have got one view on what they need to be doing, and engineering have got another, logistics have got another, finance have got another. And so for that we pulled it all back to one metric that everybody could agree on, which fulfills the business's overall strategic goals. And so we, for that, looked at the value of time. And the value of time for product development, we could get back to everybody understanding that when I do this process and it takes a week, if that is a week on the critical path, that is worth this much to the business. And so if we can do that process faster, and there's a wonderful one we've managed to digitise where we've taken it down from a week and a half to 20 minutes. And you look at that, not only are the people happy, they don't have to spend a week and a half hands on keyboard. The actual benefit to the business, you can go through and say, well, realistically, we've taken 4 days of lead time out of that process. And that's 4 days earlier we can get a project to market. And so by coming up with that one metric for everybody, then we could measure everybody's contributions, everybody's needs the same way. So when we were prioritising through the various sprints, when we were prioritising user stories, we could basically go down and say, how much is that going to save us on time, and see that as a common metric.
I think you touched really good upon, a couple of things there, and I'll leave the agile part for later discussion. But as you mentioned about having this small team that works across departments, which in big organization is always a challenge, because the bigger the organization, it's harder to get the communication right. But that's also very sort of a startup sort of culture. So how do you see that the startup culture now starting to encroach upon larger organizations into this transformation era?
It is a real cultural challenge, I have to say. So I've founded my own business and taken a business through all of those wonderful growth stages before, and done a lot of work with startups. And And the funny thing was, I went and did startup mentoring for Techstars at one of their startup weekends a couple of years ago, just as we were really kicking my current project off, and it reinforced to me the real strong difference. So startup weekend is a wonderful thing where you meet a whole group of strangers on Friday, and then by Sunday you're pitching this wonderfully polished idea that you've done research on and have got a demo for and all these things. And then you go back to working in the corporate world, and you'd spend that same amount of time trying to organise a meeting with someone.
Yep.
And particularly for a project whose key metric is the value of time, we found that what we did on that was we took that and said, right, what we're going to actually do is make that level of urgency a day-to-day thing for us. So we had this thing where it is, said really funny, a big busy organisation, you try and find someone for a meeting. It might be next week, or it might be 2 weeks, or we might have no chance. But what we did find was what we said was, what we're going to try and do is have a meeting with someone today. If we can't do one today, we'll do one tomorrow. If we can't do one tomorrow, we'll do a phone call today. And when you approach people with that level of startup urgency, people would move stuff out of the way. It was really strange. But culturally, it was us as a startup effectively invading the host.
Yeah.
And people would suddenly work at those sort of speeds. So that was really interesting.
Yeah.
You also, particularly in a large organisation with a small team trying to get stuff, you have a lot of the same parallels. So you spend a lot of time trying to raise funding.
Yeah.
And so one of my recommendations, both internally that we're working on and also to other businesses, is you need to, if you've got startup teams effectively looking for funding, you need to make sure you have your VC environment.
Yep.
You need to have angel funding levels, you need to have VC funding levels within the business.
Yeah. So
So if somebody comes to you and says, well, we've got an idea and we think it's probably worth £5 million a year to the business, and that's £5 million a year ongoing, we've kind of scoped it, we kind of think we've got an idea, then the business needs to be in a position to say, well, okay, do you need money to fund this? Yes, how much? Here's 100 grand, angel level investment, to go and study this for 2 months, 3 months, and then we're expecting you to come back and say it's either no go or you're going to need the next level of funding to deliver it. And we've managed to, on my current project, we've managed to do that relatively well. We've found sponsors within the business and done it. But there are better models out there in terms of actually thinking cross-functionally. So you have almost Dragon's Den, where your 4 dragons are the 4 key areas of the business. And you turn up and say, well, we've got this idea, and actually it'll affect you and you, engineering and purchasing. And we think the savings will be this, and these are the people we've spoken to, and research we've done, will you fund it?
Yeah.
And those people are empowered then and have a budget to do so. That's the best practice.
Excellent.
And so people, again, who do that will have a real head start on the businesses that are still doing it slow or siloed. Right.
Andrew, can I just pull you back? I mean, you've touched on 3 big areas there: innovation, people, culture, agile. Just breaking into those 3 quickly. Firstly, innovation. How do you start to create and drive through an innovation culture, which to me feels fundamental to the success now going forward of any large enterprise, any organisation?
Yeah, and it is one of the big challenges as well. For me, it's largely about getting your metrics right. So if we work on the basis that tragically we're all quite simple, and so we'll do what people are measuring us on. And if your metric is just tonnage of steel turned into nails, then the classic example is every nail is 8 inches long.
Yeah.
Because we can make those really fast. For people in product development and in all of that, if your metric is actually just get stuff to the next gateway and get it through, if it's only time based or only cost based, then that's all you will get.
Yeah.
So you've got to measure people right. You've then got to give people a space. And if you've got somebody who's working at 110% capacity, they don't have time to think. So you might have somebody at their elbow the whole time saying, well, hang on, if we did it like this, they're going, well, I haven't even got time to talk to you about if that's possible. I haven't even got time to tell you to go away. So so you need to give people, and this is really hard, you need to not load people up too much. Because the moment you start to load people past about 80%, then they've got no capacity to do anything. They've got no capacity to actually handle even just day-to-day jobs and work.
Conscious brain working all the time.
So actually giving people that space, but then setting an expectation. So there's a whole set of companies that do this, where they say, X percentage of our sales have to come from products developed within the last 12 months. Now, for a lot of businesses, that's pretty interesting and fairly. You can build stuff around that. For a big automotive company, your challenge is actually we are continually in a product development process. We don't sit in we don't sit as a manufacturer going, well, I'm just making pills, and I can just sit here while the pills just go past on the line, and maybe at some point I'll come up with another product. We are on this treadmill all the time. And a car launches, and the next car for that is already being sketched. So we have this going through. So the challenge for us is not new product; it's new ways of doing the product. So the innovation often then is within the processes that we use to deliver. And think about that again. For us, the value of time. It's about are there better ways we can do this? The ways we can do this faster. And so I remember when I left Rover, there was still a drawing table in 1999. In exactly the same space, in exactly the same building now, we have a whole range of engineers on CAD stations, which is not a surprise. So there are a whole set of things that are just happening industry-wide. But even in big industries like us, you have to go beyond just, we've given people tools. You have to go in and say, well, actually, do the proper lean breakdown and say, well, where is everybody spending their time? And if, again, you get this to a really funny degree, but if you say, if you're the person who who holds the ball for the critical path of the program, then how much are you worth to the business today? And where do you make that person park? How long does it take them to walk to their desk? How long does it take them to get their lunch? When you look at the value of people in creative industries like this, you've got to value those people properly. You've got to have the ability to fail as well for an innovation culture, and this is one that we as a country, I think, don't necessarily do very well. And it's one of these things where you want people to go, you want people to fail, to learn from that failure, and to do it differently. Not even not fail again, but to fail more creatively. And if you don't have that, then you're just not close enough to the edge. And that, again, bringing the startup world to this is a really alien concept for a lot of big corporates. Because if you're in a startup and you fail, well, it can often be pretty terminal. But you put a very small number of people out of it. If you're a large startup and you put all of your money into nuclear reactors in Japan, for example. If you're a big company, you put all your money into nuclear reactors in Japan, and there's an accident, then suddenly you've got a real issue for the whole business. And that's a lot of people and a lot of money. Big shareholders, and also it comes back to the leaders of the business.
So really it's more micro failures than knockout blows.
Absolutely. But so designing your business to withstand those failures, and actually allowing people to take risks quickly, and on that level. So challenges we have are how do we reward people on that? So if your bonus is on profitability of the company, can you see a link between that and doing something a different way? And is the only link you can see between that, if I fail, well, the bonus is going to be less? Or is it actually, if we fail, the bonus might be 1% less, but if we succeed, it might be 100% more. And that's...
if there's also not just extrinsic motivations as well that you can give, but how can you create an intrinsic motivation for people to actually adapt to that culture is a key. I think I've only been in manufacturing for 5.5 years now, since I graduated university. But one of the key things that I see now as a change is one thing that has maybe negatively impacted the innovation in manufacturing is right first time is a lean motto, right?
Yes.
And that unfortunately has crept into product innovation, R&D as well, that you don't get a chance to fail, because everything you're working on is due on a certain date, and it has to go to a customer. So that innovation cycle and that mindset just stops there. But giving them people an avenue to still do that, but having that 80-20% time like Google allows, for example, I think is one of the keys to driving innovation culture. And it's good to see that. I mean, this is something that you share the same thoughts on.
Yeah, absolutely right. Absolutely right. Lean is a really interesting one. So I've done a lot of lean transformation and really passionate about it. And the risk is when you try and bring it to inherently uncontrollable things, and you don't want to be able to say, well, creativity is something where we turn the handle and it happens. And so you need to therefore be able to have the flexibility within the business to go, well, actually I do need a product out at this point, and we need that deadline to be met. But within that plan, I'm going to make sure I do have space for creativity to happen. And it might be that, as we say, it's about not overloading people, so people actually have time to think on the way through and still meet the deadlines. It might be you have specific phases of the project. It might be you have departments working in parallel. The real challenge with all of this is again, come back to value of time. If we said, well, if we load everybody to 80% and we'll make it at this point, but actually if we load everybody to 100%, we'll make it on this point. Actually, isn't true, it goes the other way. But then you'd say, well, that's worth millions of pounds, so we're going to bring it forward. We're going to work everybody harder and not make them creative. The challenge is you can only really do that for a very short period of time, and then you don't have products that are then going to sell out the end. So it is a big challenge for businesses, and it's being able to let go of the reins to a certain extent to allow that creativity to happen, while having given people a framework to say the creativity we're aiming for is to bring us this goal of the business.
Great. And do you see as part of that culture change as well, especially when you look at the new generation of workforce coming in and where they expect everything to just happen? Right? I mean, if Amazon can deliver faster than you can track it, why can't it happen in your workplace? Why does it take things so long? And I think and they are more attracted towards a startup culture and having that freedom. And manufacturing now, I think people are known to that, but again, it's where a lot of that opportunity lies. How do you see that sort of culture fitting in?
It's a big battle, and it's funny because even I can remember in my first job at British Aerospace where we were bringing cellular manufacturing and a whole set of things. I remember us at that point giving operators a quality stamp because we were taking the inspectors out. And we were saying, you do the training, and you get to the point where we trust you, then you will be a certified self-inspection operator. And so that was back in 1991 or 1992. And that, again, is this same thing where actually we want things to be going faster, but we've got processes which are slow and so. So here we are, how many years later that is, nearly 30 years later, and we've still got a situation where we've got people coming into businesses going, right, let's do this, and then the business processes go, you can, and the meeting to approve that is next week. And a big part of my project at the moment is looking at where we build in queues of work by saying, well, I've done this and it can go now, and it's a Thursday. Okay, great. The meeting to approve it going is next Wednesday. So we've built in a queue that could be 4 days long of that, and the thing there is when we come back to the fourth industrial revolution, you have the data now around us to actually get rid of a decent number of those meetings. You go in and say, well, what are they doing? Oh, well, we have a whole set of people who will come and check what you've done. Well, a lot of that stuff now it's all virtual. So how many of those tests can we run virtually? And you have the benchmarks for the industry on that, where digital products are developed and tested and deployed. I think it's Netflix actually. Is it Netflix? 18 minutes from a coder finishing code to it being on your TV. And you think, well, that's impossible. Well, it is, unless you've actually managed to work out how to automate every single test and deployment step. And it's very easy for us in the physical manufacturing world to go, oh well, yeah, they have it easy. It's all just bits and bytes.
Yep.
You press a button, it all happens. But most of our business is actually virtual. So you look at the development process, most of that is in CAD and in other virtual systems. And so we should be and can be doing more and more of those tests digitally before people have to get involved. And a lot of that is not hard. It's just we're so busy, say, delivering stuff, we don't have the time to do that creative.
Yeah. Andrew, you touched a lot on kind of time, lean, speed, agile.
Yes.
What does agile mean to you, and how important is that approach to so much change going on?
Yeah, it's a really good question. And so the project I'm working on at the moment is it's an agile project within an organisation that's fair to say is fairly waterfall focused. And when we're doing vehicle programs, we have big waterfall plans for those that go out several years. And so that is everybody's default mentality. Whereas what we're really turning around and saying now is to deliver the stuff that we need to deliver. We can do what we have done on big IT projects in the past. We'll spend 2 or 3 years going around and talking to everybody and asking them what their goals are for this, and and then we'll spend a couple of years designing the spec for it, and then another couple of years coding it, and then we'll release it to everybody, and they'll go, well, it wasn't what we wanted. and we have good examples of that, and I think I've seen good examples of that pretty much everywhere I've worked. And so what we're doing now is very much saying, back to the startup and the pitching question, we think there's this amount of money to be saved, roughly. And we think it's going to be saved in these areas. We've had a few conversations so far, and people think these are the areas that we should tackle. And we've got an outline budget of X. And if you give us that money, we'll deliver savings of about this scale. And after people finally get their heads around saying yes and working out what they're saying yes to, we then set off and go, well, actually, there's a whole set of work streams in this. We're going to waterfall it slightly. We're going to focus on these 3 work streams first. Get out, live with the customers, find out exactly what the change is going to be, and find out where the real pain points in these processes are, and how what we're doing can solve that. And so, I have all these challenging meetings on this with people going, well, work stream 9. What is work stream 9 all about? And I'm saying, well, I won't know for another month, because we're not scheduled to even start asking the customers those detailed questions. And those are internal customers. We're not scheduled to ask those customers those questions until then. I'm not aiming to know everything right now. I'm aiming to know everything about work streams 1, 2, 3 and 4 now, and deliver them and deploy them in really quick sprints. So we do stuff, we have minimum viable product mock-ups in front of people, and people then go, oh, I didn't realise you could do that. And so the example I gave earlier, where we've got a process which takes a week and a half of hands-on keyboard time, and our first minimum viable product of that, really rough lash up, took us a couple of months maybe to get to, including building all the data side of it. And we showed that to people, and they went, oh, that's great, but now if we can do that, we could do this, this and this.
Yes.
And that took us down from a week and a half to 2 or 3 days to 20 minutes. And if we'd done the traditional waterfall, we know exactly what you want, and now in a year here it is, we might have, if we were lucky, got to the 3 days. But it only took us another couple of weeks of development to get that from 3 days down to 20 minutes.
That's very interesting, because as we go into the era of smart factory, and more even small companies start to deploy MES and ERP systems, these programs are generally, even for large systems, very big and it's very expensive. And they're generally done with external consultants who are going to deploy this for you. What would be your guideline in terms of the agile method of actually enabling companies to actually start to see the benefit instead of MES and ERP system deployment, which is core to, again, getting the basic level smart factory running, to start getting value from that?
Again, coming from a startup background on this, and ironically I did at one point do a whole set of consulting projects on helping people do their ERP selection. But I think the key thing here is don't do any big bang systems. unless you really have time and space to do it. And most businesses I talk to don't. Most businesses I talk to are in the middle of everything all the time. They are busy. They have problems that they need solving now, and you can't turn around and say, well, in 2 years you will have a system that might have nearly killed the business, but might now be able to save you. So one of the things we've been doing is actually deploying systems that sit over the top of existing creaking infrastructure. So rather than doing the 5-year program to replace some of that stuff, if it's in a position where it will still continue to operate, at least, then we're developing really powerful sticking plasters for those. Because often you can look at systems which are a decade or older and actually say, well, actually that's a really good database. And the database is pretty robust, and the user interface on top of it is horrendous. And it doesn't talk to anything else, but we can suck data out of it and push data into it pretty well. So we'll keep that as the database system and keep the other manufacturing systems running off it where they have to. But we'll suck that data out, match it with other data around the business, give that as a decent view to people, use it to digitise their processes elsewhere in the business, without at any point having to go, here's a multi-million pound new system that could stop everything. And very much for us, it's you put these on quickly, and if they're not working, you take them away again, and you haven't got something which has got its tendrils into every machine on the shop floor. So doing those quick and simple, often quite low code solutions, so you don't have to get the whole consultancy. Those are the ways to do it. Because part of the problem, as soon as you bring lots of consultants in to do stuff, is people are reluctant first off. So I want to change this, but if I change this, I've got to raise purchase orders and get a dozen quotes in, and it's going to be 3 months later. If you have low-code systems that people within the business can edit themselves, then great. You've dropped you've dropped all the barriers to entry for that. And you only have to look around most businesses and see how many people are using Excel on any given day, and why are they doing that? There's plenty of other systems out there. They'll be taking stuff out of MRP systems, putting it into Excel, doing stuff with it, showing it to people. Why are you doing that? It's because, we don't really want to get the consultants in and get them to change the reports, or we don't want to get the consultants in and put a new system in. So one of the missions we've got on my current project as well is trying to get rid of the use of Excel. We're putting in a system which we within JLR can then edit and change and use offline data. So doing things like that, I won't win any friends from Snap. But fundamentally, for most businesses at the moment, they don't have the time. And the other thing as well is they don't know what they don't know at this stage. So if you're right now, if you're putting in a big ERP implementation, you've got to be fairly confident that you know what your business is going to look like in 12 or 18 or 24 or 60 months' time. And if you don't, then that's a big investment with your fingers crossed. So right now, I'd be saying, quick and nimble solutions that you can edit.
Fantastic. And Andrew, you've covered so much ground. I really appreciate that. I mean, the whole industrial revolution and cultural and agile and data, etc. Humour me for a moment. Let's just relax from that. Let's just change it up a little bit. Automotive, you're in that sector. It's hard to imagine a more turbulent sector in terms of changes going on in it right now. I mean, EV, car sharing, modularization, and I'm forgetting half of it as well, all the different things going on. Put your Nostradamus hat on just for a moment. Just humour me. For the next 5-10 years, what are you seeing being the real big changes in the automotive sector?
It is an exciting time. More exciting than any other time, I think we've said in the last 5 years, and certainly more exciting than the times I've worked with before. EVs are going to be the big and obvious one, and that's, you don't have to put your Nostradamus hat on too hard for that. Within the next 5 years, that market share will be growing and growing, because we are right on the edge now, not just of having really good new ones, because those are now out there. So you can go out and you can buy an EV new, which will meet pretty much all your requirements. The the interesting thing then is give it 5 years, we'll have a wholesale in the used market as well.
Yeah.
And so that's the point where you go, well, actually, at the moment, if you want to buy a used EV, you can buy I think a Leaf for about £6,000. It's got an 80-mile range because it's 2 generations.
Yes.
So if you head forward 5 years, you'll be seeing current iPace and current Nissan Leaf, 250, 300-mile range in the second-hand market. And so as that starts to happen and those prices come down, more people take bets on them. So not just new, but also used. And that then means the infrastructure exponentially grows. And so EVs are pretty much a given. It would be a brave person who would bet on much in a different direction.
Got it.
So that's, if we work on that's a given, then you're into forecasting the fun bits. And so autonomy is the elephant in the room on this one, where it seems at the same time both impossible and possible. So Waymo, who we partner with the iPace, have got autonomous paid taxi service running in the States now, in a limited space. But so you quite simply go, well, we have that learning now within the industry. It's just a matter of learning new spaces. And so you could see that being, over the next 10 years, something which grows incrementally. But it might be that you go, one city and then another city gets it entirely and another city gets it entirely. That'll probably still be geographically fenced. We're not very good at mapping the entire world. The entire world keeps changing a lot and gets a bit random. But we can probably capture that within specific locations. So level 4 autonomy. Level 5 autonomy, where in theory you walk out of your house, a pod turns up, or your car is there and level 5 enabled and just takes you anywhere you want, is coming, but is hard. And that is, so whether that will be 5 years or 10 years is interesting. But I think this is where the blend of digital and physical becomes fun, because we're now really at a point where this is largely a software issue. So we've got all the sensors, and we're now, engineers are working on making those cheaper and things. But the challenge now is all around software and sensor processing. And we know from all the other areas where digitalisation has hit how fast that changes. So if we work on Moore's law continuing to function on all of this, then we're not in our 7-year development cycles for automotive. We're in the world changing every 2 years, every 18 months. And so if the effectiveness of these things starts to double every 18 months, then it'll become really, really interesting, really, really quickly. So EVs and autonomy, those are my 2 bets.
Good bet. Andrew, thanks so much. It's been amazing to go all through that. Number 1 done. Hope you enjoyed that. See you next time.